Good afternoon. What an amazing day with all the rain out there, right? I know some of you don't like it. I had to go and change twice already to come to church today. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and being here. And this is a time when we want to prepare our hearts to receive what God is speaking to us in this season. Have you seen the bumper sticker that says, Jesus is the answer? Have you seen that? When you see that, what comes to your mind? What are the questions? That's number one. That's what I think about it. What are the questions? Because this whole world is full of answers. Everybody has an answer for something, even for the questions that we never asked. Right? But when you open the scriptures, the Word of God, it's filled not just with answers, it's filled with questions. In fact, there are about 2,300 questions in Old Testament alone, and about another 1,200 questions in the New Testament. That's 3,500 questions in 1,189 chapters of the Bible. Isn't that amazing? It's about almost 2 to 3 questions per chapter. You don't see them all the time because we don't really carefully stop to look at those questions. Some questions are asked by God. Well, you wonder, does God has questions? Who's going to answer those questions? If God has questions. Well, if God has questions, but it's not because He don't have the answer. He has questions because He wants to ask those questions so you can really think a little deeper. He asks those questions so that we can know what's going on with us. Then there are questions that Jesus asked. In the 4 Gospels, there are 300 questions that Jesus asked to different people. Jesus, in fact, was a bit notorious for his style of questioning. You come with the question to Jesus, he always don't give you the answer. He asks you another question, right? So people were so afraid to ask questions to Jesus because they knew that they can almost expect He's going to ask a question. Then there are questions that are asked by humans like us. Some of those questions that, read the book of Psalms. David had 1,000 questions, right? Like, why, God? How? What? And there's a lot of questions that people ask. They are about their struggles, their doubts, their longing and confusion. Then there are philosophical questions that are so deeper. Like in Jeremiah chapter 13, verse 23, can a leopard change its spot? Who's going to answer that question? Then there are skeptical questions, accusatory ones, like in the Garden of Eden when the snake walks into Eve, asks the question, what is that? Did God really tell you? There's questions like that. Then there are evangelistic questions. What must I do to be saved? Then there are questions that are about, where can we find the bread? There's very practical daily questions. Bible has thousands of questions. So this summer, our goal as a preaching team is to look at some of those questions from the Bible. But now we're not going to do 3,500 sermons. That's not the plan. We're going to take about 12 questions that are so very deeper. We're going to choose some from Old Testament, some from New Testament, and we're going to talk about what that questions meant to the people, those who heard it first, and how does it matter to us in this 21st century. So for today, we're going to start with the first one. This is asked by God. God asked His first question in the Garden of Eden, where are you, Adam? Adam, where are you? This is what God's first question to humanity. We will look in the next 25, 30 minutes of time. We will look into that question and see, why would God, the Creator, the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient God, who knows everything in everywhere, asking a question that is so simple? Where are you? Where are you, Adam? If you really need to look at that simple question, where are you? You need to understand a little bit of the background of how he came to the place of asking that question. So if you look at the scriptures, in chapter 1 and 2, it's a sinless world. There's no sin. Everything God created in the 6 days, or the 6 intervals that we call in chapter 1, God looks at everything day after day, and he said something very important. What was that? It was good. Everything God created was good. It's a perfect world that came into order. From nothing to everything, from chaos to perfect unity. God brought everything to a place. Everything was good. And on the 6th day, God created first animals that is in the world, on the earth, and then he created human beings. He created them very special. Every other animals or every other creatures were created by God speaking forth. Let there be. Let there be. But when he created human beings, he said, no, I don't want to create like that. I want to create them in my image, in my likeness, in our likeness. God conferred in the unity of Godhead. He says, let us create man in our image. And there's a purpose for which we need to create them. Because if they are created in our image, they are going to represent God into the universe that he created. I want the human beings to be my representative into the world. There's a purpose, there's a mission to which God creates the human beings. And then he blesses them with everything that they needed. From food, from position, to authority. He gives everything. And he told them that do that. You are here for a purpose. You're here for a mission. Now I want you to know that. And then he blesses them. And there's something that God talks about it. You know what that is? He looked at, after creating human beings, what did he say? It's very good. God says something not just good, he says it is very good. And so that's the world that he created. And when God created human beings, he is created with an identity. That identity is not something disconnected from God. It's actually from God. God said, you were created in the image of me. You are my representative. It's like looking, someone said this statement, if God looks into the mirror, you know what God is going to see? God is going to see us because we are the image of He is the original. That's how God created. God created us to be His image that looks like Himself. In the book of Psalms, it says, He created us a little lower than Elohim, a little lower than Himself. Some translation uses the word angels, but the original translation says, He created us a little lower than Himself, to be like Him, to be in His likeness. He created us with an identity that we have. We are image bearers of God. He created us with a purpose. And the purpose is to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over it. I put the references in that passages there on the screen. It's there in the scriptures. God said, I want you to accomplish my mission, my purpose on earth. God took them into the Garden of Eden. A garden is not just about the trees and the animals. It's a sacred space that God created. The Garden of Eden is the sacred space where God could commune with the human beings whom He created. Where God could come, walk in every evening and spend time with this creation who looks like Him. It's a beautiful sacred space. And He said, I want you to work here. By the way, those of us who are thinking that we won't work in the new earth and new heaven, that's just a wrong thinking. We have work. Work is holy. Work is sacred. God created this work as part of His nature. He is a God who worked. In fact, on the sixth day, He rested from the work that He has been doing. And that's why He said, you shall not work on the seventh day, where I can have just full of you. I can spend time with you. You can spend time with me. Work is God's blessing. He created us for working, not toiling until our last breath and dreading work. Not to be burned out, but to be alive and do the work, to cultivate and to keep the garden. The role of a stewardship God has given. And God gives the blessing. He said not only to multiply and rule, but He said that I will provide for your needs. You don't need to be anxious and worried about how you're going to feed yourself. I'm going to give you provision. And He also gave them the freedom. He said, well, every tree in the garden is your fruit except one. That's the freedom. That you are free to choose what you want. And that choice included walking away from Him. That if you choose to walk away from me, I want to give you that freedom. But I want you to choose what is life. God has given them freedom. So in the context of all this blessing, all this purpose, all this goodness, you have to see the picture of this perfect world that God has created. Not only that, what about relationship in the Garden of Eden? There is 4 different aspects of the relationship that you can see in the Garden of Eden. Number 1 is the man to himself. The last verse of chapter 2 ends by saying this. The man and woman, or Adam and Eve, were naked and they did not feel shame. What does shame mean? Shame is the feeling or the sense of lacking. There's something that I lack. That is what shame is. And they did not lack anything. In the world that God created human beings to be in the likeness of God, there was nothing lacking. He was created to the fullness. And not only that, he was created for himself in fullness, they could not feel shame between each other. That means in that world, it was completely transparent. There is nothing to hide. Imagine a world that you don't have anything to hide. Everything is open. God created a world with the transparency. Everything is so perfect and transparent, nothing to be hidden, to the fullness. And what about the relationship with God and human beings? It was in the perfect unity, sincerity. There was no thing to fear. They were in intimate relationship where God could walk into the life of Adam and Eve when He chose to, and they would go and embrace God. In that garden, they enjoyed the intimate relationship of God. Pure, holy, without fear. And that was the world that God created. Between the husband and wife, when man looked at woman for the very first time, do you know what happened? There was a love song that was born. The first poetry in the Bible is the song that Adam sung to Eve. You are the bone of my bone, the flesh of my flesh. You taken from the man, and you shall be called woman. It's a song, beautiful, amazing expression of a love song. There was nothing to blame. You are mine. Between the world that God created and the human beings, there was perfect unity. How do you know? In chapter 2, God told Adam that here is all that I created, and I want you to go and name them one by one. Can you imagine? All these animals, Adam walks out and looks at the lion, and he goes and just touches the hair on the lion and say, you're going to be a lion. You're going to be tiger. You're going to be this bird. Everything was in perfect unity. There was no fight, there's no killing, there's no bloodshed. This is the order in which God created. There was perfect unity. There were no thorns and thistles grew in the garden or anywhere in the earth. And when man planted something, it gave 100-fold fruit. There was nothing lacking. There's perfect unity for himself. There's perfect unity for one another. There's perfect unity between God and man. And there's perfect unity between the creation and the human beings. Because human beings were created to rule and to manage and steward everything that God created. Now, I want you to come to the question. This world that God created. In the next 8 or 11 verses the 8 verses in chapter 3, everything is completely gone. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord had made. He said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from the tree in the garden? Any tree in the garden? The woman said to the serpent, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. You will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And they hid from the Lord among the trees of the garden. But the Lord called to the man, where are you? Adam, where are you? Now, I want you to think about this question. And I'm not going to go today about the serpent part or how that whole thing happened. What I want you to know about this is a conversation between Adam and Eve and God. Because God had made Adam and Eve to be the God of his creation, to be the representative, to be the ruler of everything. It's not snake who was put in charge of everything. It is man and woman who are put in charge of everything. It's the accountability part was on Adam and Eve. So our questions today is about human beings and God. Maybe in another time, we will deal with the evil, the entrance of evil through serpent another day. But I want you to look at God's question, where are you, Adam? I started with saying that God is omniscient God. He knows everything. Is God asking Adam, which tree are you hiding behind? Or which bush or which cave are you in? I can't find you. Is that what God is asking? It's not, right? So there is something more than the location of their hiding. There's something deeper that God is asking them. It is not that God doesn't know where they are. The problem is human beings does not know where they are. And God is probing them to come to the place of realization. Where are they today after they are fallen into sin? What happened to them? Sin fractures everything that we talked about the last 10 minutes. The identity of God's Spirit in them. The identity of being created in the image of God. Sin fractured the purpose for which God created these human beings. Sin fractured every blessing that God has given them. Sin fractured every relationship that human beings had. The very first thing that happened to the human beings when they decided to disobey God and to distrust God and to walk in disobedience is that he started looking at himself and he started feeling ashamed. This is the first time the concept of shame came into the human beings. That he started feeling he's less than what he's created for. When you feel that you are less than what you created for, your plan B is to run and to hide yourself. You want to create some covering for covering your nakedness. And human beings did that very thing that I feel lacking. And I want to be not any more transparent with you. You wear the flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. I didn't want to hide anything from you. But the moment I commit sin, I want to be away from you. Adam and Eve sewed fig leaves to cover their nakedness. The relationship between God and humankind, that which was of intimate relationship, is now ruled by what? Is fear. The moment intimacy is lost, you fall into the place of fear. The moment sin comes into the world, the thing that comes to human beings is that I'm afraid of judgment. I have to face a God who put me in charge of this place, and I have failed, and the judgment is impending. And human beings started thinking about fear. Fear came into existence. Shame came into existence. Fear came into existence. Then comes the next level that they did not want to take responsibility. You see, the pattern is going from shame to fear. The moment fear comes into your mind, you think about it. How can I escape the punishment? The best thing to do to punishment is not take responsibility, blame on someone else. First, it was a love song. Now it's a curse. That woman you put in charge with me. I didn't ask for it, by the way. You put that woman into my life. She caused all this trouble. Period. I know some of you are laughing. And it probably happens in your homes, right? When we are caught the first thing I look at is this: where can I put the blame? We don't want to take responsibility. We want to blame the systems. We want to blame our parents. We want to blame our children. We want to blame our spouses. We want to blame our church. We want to blame someone. If we don't have anything, we want to blame the rain out there. It's because of the rain. We don't want to take responsibility. Adam and Eve, when they realized they were naked, they wanted to cover up. Self-awareness turns into self-condemnation. God came and asked this follow-up questions, not only just, where are you? And Adam's reply was that, I was afraid. God asked the second question, who told you that? I was afraid because I was naked. Who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree that I banned you from eating? I was afraid, so I hid. Fear replaces intimacy. God becomes someone to avoid, not someone to walk with. He started blaming the woman you put here. Broken trust, finger pointing, alienation. Shame and fear overflow into relational defensiveness. Shame and fear combined together spread into relational defensiveness. It doesn't stop there. Relationship with the world and human beings are broken. First thing that God tells the creation, there will be enmity between the created world and you. There will always be enmity. You will sow the seed, you won't see the fruit coming. Rather, thorns and thistles are going to grow. There is a curse because you broke my trust. Because you're in charge. This is also a question of leadership. When the leadership fails, everything else that down is also failing. Right? If a company's CEO is corrupt, it does not just affect him. Of course, it affects him more, but it affects the whole company. The market is down, employees are jobless. It affects the whole system. That's exactly what is happening to Adam and Eve. Everything is changed. Until that day, before the sin, Adam could walk into a tiger and talk to him and say, this is your tiger. The next day, if Adam walked into that tiger, the tiger will look at Adam and say, I found my breakfast. That was the difference. Because it's a world that is broken. Where are you, Adam? I said this is not a geographical question. It's not about location. It is about relational breaking. It's about spiritual fallout. It's about missional failure. God is asking human beings, where are you today? Spiritually. Where are you relationally? How are you doing with yourself, with one another, with me, with the creation that I put under your care? How are you spiritually? Are you able to connect with me? Why are you afraid? What about the mission that I gave it to you? To rule over everything I created. The purpose for which I created you, you have fallen from that. And by the way, God is not coming to this question to punish human beings. His heart cry as a creator is this: you are my image bearers. You have stepped out of the alignment between you and me. And I care for you. I want you to think, Adam, for a moment. Where are you fallen into? God is not coming to pick you up and then say, you lost everything, I want to punish you and to forsake you. But He's coming with a heart to restore. They were made for dominion, but are now ruled by fear. They were made for openness, and now they are hiding. They were made for life. They are now clothed in death's shadow. What does "where are you" reveal? What did that question reveal to Adam? First of all, God is initiating a conversation. God could have just said, okay, they failed. Next. Finish with them. Because I told them, the day you eat, you shall die. God could have counted them as dead. There is no need for God to go after them. But God in His graciousness comes with this question, where are you, Adam? I want to pursue you with my life rather than punishing you with your mistake. I want to pursue you with love. God's question is not punitive, it's redemptive. Where are you is not to punish them, but to bring them to a place of restoration. God is giving Adam and Eve a space to name His own condition, to come with an open heart and say, God, here I am. It's the starting point of recovery. Not just from sin, but from the laws of calling. To restore them from not just the place of punishment, but to bring them back into the blessing that He offered. It's a conversation starter. Where are you, Adam? And the beauty of that question is this. He's still asking the same question today. Where are you? Where are you, my child? Where are you, my son? Where are you, my daughter? Where are you hiding? What are you hiding from? What are the things that you look at yourself and you feel ashamed of? I have come to restore you. The beauty, the glory, the purpose, the mission, the responsibility. I have come back to you to restore you. God began this question in the Garden of Eden on the first day of the fall, and He continues with the same question in the 21st century to you and me. His question to you today is the same question. Where are you? Where are you? Are you trying to hide from me by creating cloth for yourself from the fig leaves? What are the fig leaves that you are sewing together? The image the world gives you, the wealth, the money, the power. What are things that you are using to cover your own nakedness, your own shame? Because you feel, I am not appreciated. I am not worthy. I am not good enough. I can't be there. If you are trying to sew fig leaves of your own and to bring your covering, God tells you that's not enough. All the things that you are trying to cover your shame is not good enough. It's just a matter of one sun rising on you. It will shrink. It will go. You need a cloth that I can give you. And I'm here to restore you. Where are you hiding? Why are you living in fear? There are people who come to me and often talk about, I can't go to God because I've fallen short. Every time I feel I'm fallen short, will He ever accept me? And God speaks to you today, come to me. You don't need to hide behind the bush. I have come to you so I can restore you. How about your work? The blessing of work that God has given us. I know of people, even in our own community, that work has become a burden, a toil, a suffering, because they haven't seen what God has given them as a blessing. God has given you blessing, a place not only to feed your family, but also something to enjoy. A place where you can bring the presence of God. You are missional in your workplace. Have you ever thought that I am a representative of God in the place of work? I want to see the glory of God in my workplace. And when we start to live glorifying God with our work, God is going to bring you change and bring the change through you in your workplace. How about your relationships? Start with your spouse, your parents. You feel ashamed. You have things to hide from your own spouse. You have things to hide from your parents. You have things that you don't want to be transparent about. Unforgiveness, bitterness, jealousy, anger, frustration. God comes to you today and asking you this question, where are you? I want to restore you for the purpose which I created you. I want to make you a blessing. I want to bring the blessing to you and through you. He continued to ask the same question. God pursued with a promise in the Garden of Eden. He came and He said, your fig leaves is not sufficient for you. I'm going to clothe you. God brings the first clothing to the human beings and say, I want to clothe you. I want to cover your nakedness. Your efforts are not good enough to cover you. You need a cloth that I can give. Then He said, I will promise you, I will restore you. He sent Jesus Christ to restore everything that He lost. When Jesus Christ comes into the Garden of Eden, the story changes. The Garden of Eden is the same world that we live in. Jesus comes into us and He creates a new creation in us. Anyone who is in Christ, the new creation has come. What is God's greatest purpose? If you ask me, God's greatest purpose is to restore you into the image of Jesus Christ. He wants to give you the same identity back to you because He created in the first place, He created us in the image of God. And He is creating us, recreating us into His Son's image. The Holy Spirit's work on earth today is to restore you into the image of Christ. That's the identity that you lost. He wants to give you back. He wants to take away your shame from you. Do you realize that when Jesus hung on the cross, He hung there naked? Do you know why? Because we hid in shame. He hung in shame to restore you from your shame and to give you a new place in Him. A new life for you. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 2 says, for the joy set before Him, He endured the cross, scorning its shame. Scorning its shame means He confronted it. He endured it, and He ultimately defeated it. Adam hid in shame, but Jesus hung in shame so that you and I don't have to live in shame anymore. God wants to restore us. Jesus says, I want to cover you with my righteousness. He's clothing us with His righteousness. The cross just don't deal with the guilt alone. It silences its shame. Romans chapter 8 verse 15. It says, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, which calls God Abba, Father. He is restoring us from fear to come back to intimacy, where you and I can call God Abba, Daddy, Father. He is restoring us. I told you on the Easter Sunday, when Jesus hung on the cross and called God, my God, why have you forsaken me? God was giving us a place that you and I can call Him my Father, I want to come back to you. There's an exchange that Jesus does it. And He restores us with one another in a holy marriage relationship. He's restoring us. In this church community, He's restoring us to forgive. There's about 53 one another passage in the Bible that talks about our relationship that is restored. And He gives us the spiritual authority to rule over, not just on earth, but in the heavenly realms. You and I have been restored into authority. God is asking the same questions today, friends. Where are you? What have you lost? Where are you now? I want to ask this question and close this. Are you hiding from yourself? What are the fig leaves that you are using to cover yourself? Are you hiding from God in fear? Are you living in guilt? The Lord is calling you. Where are you, my son? Where are you, my daughter? It's not a call to judge you or punish you, but it's a call to restore you. There's no shadow He won't light up. There's no mountain He won't climb up coming after you. There's no wall He won't kick down. Lie He won't tear down coming after you with the same question. Where are you today?